Hey guys, it's me, Kaylin. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. So this afternoon, I was trying to clear up some space on my computer so that I could edit another YouTube video. And I found a couple of old videos that I shot years ago here in Namibia, but never had the chance to upload. So the video that you just saw was shot in 2011 at a school that I used to teach at when I was volunteer teaching in northern Namibia. So for those of you guys who don't know, I first moved to Namibia as a volunteer teacher in December of 2010, and I taught high school students in grades 8, 9, and 11, English, computer classes, and life skills classes. So many evenings the students would be singing, sometimes for choir practice, sometimes just because the students actually that were singing lived on the school property. So many evenings they would be singing, and I just thinking back to that time, I remember how I was just so blown back and just mesmerized and amazed by how beautiful they sounded naturally, with obviously no professional training or anything like that. It was just raw Black African musical talent, you know what I mean? And it was just so beautiful. And it used to really, it's still like, if I hear that, I remember it really moved me. It was my first time to Africa, my first time living in Africa, and I would get to hear them singing through the windows of my house every evening, and it was just magical, to be honest. So those are some really fond memories. Now, the video that you're about to see right now was shot in 2013 when I was living in Namibia's capital city of Windhoek. So again, for those of you who are newer to my channel, I did live in Namibia's capital city at one point. Right now, I live about 2.5 hours north of it. But when I was living in the capital, I shot the following video. And basically in this video, I'm just talking about the adjustments that I had to make as an African American that moved to Namibia. What were the adjustments that I had to make, that I found that I had to make living here? And not much has really changed about my feelings, so it's still pretty accurate, pretty spot on in terms of what I mentioned. So I think it's still worth watching. It was also pretty cool, creepy but cool, to watch Kaylin before becoming a mother, Kaylin before becoming a wife, Kaylin on the verge of turning 30. Now I'm 34. So it was pretty fascinating for me to watch my old self, but I'm still the same, but still I've grown and changed a lot, obviously. All right, guys, enjoy.
Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. In this video, I wanted to talk about the adjustments that I went through, upon first arriving and living in Namibia. And this is a question that I actually got off of one of my YouTube videos, so I wanted to address it. So I'll start out by saying socially, I didn't really have that many or that much of a difficult time adjusting. That wasn't really a big problem for me. I sort of kind of blended in, naturally, and I don't think it's necessarily because I'm Black. I think it's just because I'm an open-minded person. I was really excited to be in Africa. So yeah, like socially, I didn't have that many problems adjusting to life here. I was, very accepted, and I think I'll just do a whole separate video on how I was welcomed here, like socially, by Namibians. But things that I have had to adjust to that have not been that easy. Number one, spiders. I am terrified of spiders. I always have been. Back in the US, where the spiders are like this, like here, they're like this. And, there are these common spiders here called wall spiders, because they basically like to sit on the wall, and they're like big and they're like extremely flat, and it's just disgusting, and I hate them and I'm terrified of them, and they run like super fast. And what I found works here is basically Doom bug spray that has saved my life. I remember when I first got here, I bought Raid. Raid does not really work well on African insects, I've realized. Doom, though, works extremely well. So that really saved my life. And it's just been basically mind over matter, because, I've pretty much always been living by myself here. So if you are in your apartment alone and there's a spider, you got to take care of it. So, it's just been mind over matter, basically. Aside from that, the insects haven't really been too bad. Maybe, ants can be a bit aggressive here. I think there are scorpions. Maybe I've seen one. There are definitely snakes here, and big ones, like black mambas, puff adders, but I have not seen a snake for the entire time that I've been here, although I know that they are around. There was a big one found like very close to my door like a few months ago. So yeah, and they're poisonous, a lot of poisonous snakes here. But I don't really have a phobia of snakes, so it hasn't been a problem. Another adjustment here has been like the privacy. Okay, so Namibia is a large country, but the population is just about 2 million. So what I find a bit like, I'll just call it what it is, to me, like a bit annoying is like, um, no matter where you go, like you bump into somebody you know, and just sometimes like I don't feel like running into anybody I know, you know what I mean? On the other hand, it's, probably a nice thing actually that you can run into people that you know, but to me, I just feel like sometimes lack of privacy. Um, you know, every time I go to the mall, I can guarantee that I'm going to run into someone that I know. Or when I walk down the streets in town, there's a high chance that I will run into someone I know. But I am trying to learn how to embrace it because I recognize actually, it's something different. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's kind of nice. Another thing that I have had to adjust to, I would say, is not really being able to go out by myself at night in Windhoek. Okay, so when I was a volunteer teacher, I lived in, a small town in northern Namibia, all the way at the top of the country, close to Angola. Um, but most of the time that I've been in Namibia, I've been living in the capital. And I don't have my license. I think that's the biggest thing. So I rely on like taxis, the public transportation. Taxis you have to be careful with in Windhoek after dark. It can get a little bit dicey. People try to men or the drivers try to take advantage of you. It's just Namibians always tell me like, oh no, don't take taxis by yourself at night. Everybody knows, especially as a female, it's not the safest thing to do, just because you become a target for getting robbed. So for me, not having my driver's license, which is a whole other story, I am turning 30 in 19 days, and I do not have my driver's license. I'm from New York. I never got it. Um, Whole other story. For me, I find myself a lot of the time, not being able to go out by myself at night, unless I'm with, someone else, preferably a guy. That's maybe like taxi drivers will be less likely to try to rob you if you're with a man as opposed to another woman. It just gets annoying because I'm from New York and I'm used to being able to, walk down the street when I want to, take the subway, whatever, whatever, whatever. So here, that's something that I've definitely found a bit difficult to adjust to. And then another thing that I have had to adjust to, again, having to do with transportation, is just like the road safety here. Namibia, the road safety is definitely a bit disturbing. I'm just going to be honest. It's a large country, but all the towns are like, very, very, very spread apart. So you find people having to drive like, really long distances very frequently. And what happens is people are driving from one town to another town that's 8 hours away. And they on average drive about 100 miles per hour, and they overtake, someone that's driving slow. They didn't properly look when they overtook, and they have a horrific head-on collision, and 4 or 5 people are dead. That's kind of the norm with like accidents here, always like terrifying and horrific. Another thing that happens a lot is tire blowouts. People, like driving again extremely fast, and then the tire blows out and the car goes flying off the road, or the tire blows out and the car overturns. I've been in a taxi. When I was a volunteer, I was in a vehicle and the tire blew out, and the car went flying off the road. Luckily, there was no oncoming car or oncoming traffic. Otherwise, it would have been a disaster. So for me, unfortunately, now I get a bit paranoid about, being in vehicles, being on the highway here, and I hate that because, again, I feel like it's sort of limiting me. So, I mean, that's just, another thing that I've, after time, felt like it's been, a bit of an adjustment. So the language, it was a bit of an adjustment. So when I first came here, again, I was a volunteer teacher at a school, and in the area, everybody spoke, in their mother tongue first. They understood English. Most people understood English, but they spoke in their mother tongue first. And the name of that language is Oshiwambo. So, I was a teacher at a school. I'd be sitting in the staff room. Everyone around me was speaking in Oshiwambo, and it was just like I couldn't understand anything they were saying. I couldn't participate in the conversations. And it was a little bit like kind of distracting, just constantly hearing another language in your ear. Um, and then, I remember at first I was wondering, like, are people saying things about me? I mean, you just don't know. Sometimes my students would say things about me in Oshiwambo, though. I know that. um, so, at first it was a little, like, I would say for the first 2 or 3 months the first 2 months that I was a volunteer teacher, it was like, okay, kind of like, just a little bit like it was an adjustment. But after a while, like I honestly like the language sort of became like background noise in my ear, and it just wasn't like it didn't like strike me as much, the fact that I didn't understand what people were saying, and I just became very comfortable with it. Also, on my end, like although people understood English where I was living as a volunteer, like my accent, I guess, is very, very like my English accent, the American accent is very like deep. So a lot of the time, when I first came, I was sometimes speaking very quickly to people. They didn't understand what I was saying, although they understood English. So I had to learn, in conversation and as well as teaching to significantly like slow down my English, choose my words kind of carefully, and watch my pronunciation. Um, so yeah, language was a little bit of an adjustment, not just on my end, but on the ends of the Namibians that I was interacting with. Um, what people often tell me once they hear me speak is, oh, your English is very, very deep. Your English is very deep. So yeah, it's funny, like people understand English, but accents can definitely throw people off like significantly. So. Okay, it's getting a bit dark now. Anyway, one more thing that I had to adjust to, but it turned out to not be that big of an adjustment. When I was a volunteer where I was living, there were frequent water and electricity outages. Now that I live in the capital, that rarely, almost never happens. But as a volunteer where I was living, there were water and electricity outages. So, it sounds worse than it is. Like, it's so funny when I watch people on, in the US, like if there's a hurricane or bad weather and the power goes out and everybody's freaking out, there's no internet, what are they going to do? It's not that serious. Like, when I was a volunteer, there was a time when the water was off like for like weeks, like every morning, there was a high chance that the water would be off. So you store your water in pots and you bathe like that. It's not that difficult. It really truly isn't. Electric outages. Okay, like you use a candle. You know what I mean? Like, okay, the biggest thing is like when the cell phone network goes down because the electricity is out. It's a bit frustrating, but you survive. So water and electricity outages are like not a big deal to me at all. Like, it's really very survivable. And so yeah, that wasn't an adjustment, although a lot of people would probably find it a bit like difficult to deal with. So yeah. So those are the things, the adjustments that I can think of right now. I don't know if there are any more that I can think of, but yeah, so that's been the most difficult things for me to adjust to, and they've all sort of emerged over the 3 years that I've been here. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.